In this video, we will solve a question on Cournot oligopoly with n firms. The question is, consider a Cournot oligopoly with n firms and a demand function is P is equal to summation of I is equal to 1 to n Qi, where P denotes the market price and Qi is the firm ith's output. Let the marginal cost be 40. The marginal cost for each firm is 40. Then the overall industry output lies in the interval. We need to find out the interval in which the industry's output will lie. So we have the closed intervals. That means we have 60 and 180, 40, 200, 80, 160 and 70 and 160. We need to find out the overall industry's output lies between the closed interval. Okay. So since we have the Cournot model, that means the firms will be competing in terms of quantities here. Okay. So let's first write the demand function that is being given us. I can write this demand function as P is equal to, so we have summation from I is equal to 1 to n. Okay. So I can rather, I'm sorry, the market demand function looks like this. P is equal to 200 minus this term. Okay, so this is the market demand function. So let me write it here. We have 200 minus, so I lies from 1 to n, so I can write it in this fashion. That means I can write q1 plus q2 plus so on to qn. This is our market demand function. Because I lies from 1 to n, so I have written the overall industry output from Q1 to Qn. I have added them. That means this is the total industry output here. Now, first thing is we will try to find out, the individual firms, equilibrium output. That means we need to find out the reaction function of firm 1. Okay, reaction function of a firm in Cournot oligopoly simply shows us the amount of output that firm 1 will produce given the other firms have chosen their optimal outputs. Okay, so the reaction function, how do we calculate the reaction function? Simple thing. First, reaction function of firm 1 will be found out by equating the marginal revenue of firm 1 with its marginal cost. Since marginal cost is same for each individual firm, so let's denote it by MC1. Okay. Now to find out the marginal revenue function of firm 1, first we need to find out the total revenue function of firm 1. So total revenue, let me write it here, total revenue of firm 1 will be equal to P into Q1. Okay, price into output of firm 1, which will be equal to, so this is our demand function. Let me write it here. In place of P we have 200 minus we have from Q1 plus Q2 plus so on to Qn, and we add, rather we multiply it with Q1. Okay, first we need to find out the total revenue function of firm 1. So total revenue of firm 1 will be equal to, that is 200 Q1. Okay, then we have minus, if I multiply each term with minus, so it will become Q1 into Q1 is Q1 square, then we have minus Q1 Q2, then we have minus so on up to minus Q1 Qn. Okay, this is the total revenue function of firm 1. Now, marginal revenue function of firm 1 will be equal to, marginal revenue function of firm 1 will be equal to the partial derivative of total revenue function of firm 1 with respect to output of firm 1. Okay, taking partial of this function. So derivative of Q1 is 1, so we are left with here only with 200 minus derivative of Q1 square will be equal to twice Q1. Okay, now derivative of Q1 in the second term will be equal to 1, so we are left with Q2. Then we will get symmetrically we will get minus Q3 minus so on up to derivative of Q1 is 1, so we are left with Qn only. This is the marginal revenue function of firm 1. Okay, now equating it with the marginal cost. So uh, for profit maximization, firm 1 will equate its marginal revenue with its marginal cost. So we will have, when we, let me write it here, MR1 is equal to MC1 implies this 200, rather this 200 minus twice Q1 minus Q2 minus Q3 minus so on minus Qn should be equal to the marginal cost of firm 1, which is, $40. And in fact, the marginal cost is same for each firm here. So let's write it here. Okay. Now we can do one thing here. I can rewrite it in this fashion: 200 minus, we have here minus twice Q1. I can write it in this fashion: Q1, okay, minus Q1. Okay, so in place of this minus twice Q1, I have written Q1 and Q1. Then we have minus Q2 minus Q3 minus so on up to minus Qn is equal to 40. Here I can write it in this fashion: 200 minus, let me write it here, Q1 first, this Q1, okay, then minus, let's take minus common here. So we have Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 plus so on to Qn, and we equated with the marginal cost. Okay, I hope I am making myself clear. So it will become 200 minus Q1, or let me write it. Since the firms in this oligopoly have same marginal cost, that means cost function of each firm is same, meaning that each firm will produce same amount of output. Okay, so by symmetry we can say that since firms are symmetric, so we can write the output of firm 1 will be equal to output of firm 2 will be equal to output of firm n. Okay, that means in place of Q1, in place of Q2, Q3 up to Qn, I can write Q1, which implies 200 minus Q1 minus, we have Q1. In place of Q2, I can write Q1. In place of Q3, I can write Q1, so on up to, in place of Qn, I can write Q1. So we have Q1 n times here, okay, is equal to 40. So we have here, we have 200 minus Q1 minus, now here you can see we have Q1 n times, so in place of this I can write n times Q1 is equal to 40. Okay, which implies, and let me write it here, we have 200, let's take minus common, rather let's take minus Q1 common, minus Q1 common, so we are left with 1 plus n is equal to 40. Solving for Q1, so I can write it in this fashion: Q1 1 plus n, transposing it here, so 200 minus 40 is 160. I'm just skipping the basic stuff because I don't have extra space here. That means output of firm 1 will be equal to 160 divided by 1 plus n. If I transpose this here, 1 plus n to the RHS, this shows the output of firm 1. Okay, but we are concerned with n firms. That means output of, remember this Q1 denotes the output of firm 1. Since firms are identical here, that means output of each firm will be equal to this 160 upon 1 minus n, 1 plus n. Then industry output will be equal to, that is, let's denote it by simple Q. Okay, industry output will be equal to number of firms, that is n, times the Q1. Okay, number of firms times the output of first firm, which gives us Q will be equal to, so Q1 is this 160, to this we multiply n divided by 1 plus n. This is the output of firm, sorry, this is the industry output here. Okay. Now the question tells us, find the interval between which the industry output will lie. Okay. So there are two things here. Either the number of firms will be infinitely large, or the number of firms will be only one. We have single firm. Okay. Let us solve it for when n is equal to, and let me write it here. When we have infinite number of firms, when n tends to infinity. In this, in this equation, when n tends to infinity, when we have infinitely large number of firms, then q will be equal to this q. Q will be equal to, we take limit of is n tends to infinity of this 160 and divided by 1 plus n. Okay. Since we are taking n tends to infinity, first we need to, we cannot just plug n is equal to 1 infinity here. It will become infinity upon infinity, which is undefined. So for that, what we do, simply to solve limit as n tends to infinity, we will divide numerator and denominator by n. Okay, so I can write it in this fashion. Q is equal to limit as n tends to infinity is equal to 160, and dividing it by n whole divided by 1 plus n, and here we also divide it by n here. Okay. So what will we get? We will get q is equal to limit as n tends to infinity. So n and n will get cancelled. We are left with 160 divided by, here we have 1 upon n. Okay, 1 upon n plus 1. Okay. So q will be equal to, as n tends to infinity, we know 1 upon infinity will be equal to 1 upon infinity will be equal to 0. That means we will get 160 divided by 0 plus 1, which gives us industry output as 160. Okay. When we have, so we got when n tends to infinity, when we have infinitely large number of firms, our output will be equal to 160. Okay. So we got one side of the interval. So this is one case. Another case is when n tends to 1, rather when n is equal to 1. Simple thing. In this equation, when we have only one firm, so we can just put n is equal to 1 or use the limit. It's up to you here. That means q will be equal to limit as n tends to 1, okay, of this function 160 and divided by 1 plus n. Simply plug n is equal to 1 here. So q will be equal to 160 into 1 divided by 1 plus 1. So q will be equal to 160 divided by 2, which gives us output equal to 80. Okay. So what interval did we got? We got the interval as 80 and 160. Okay. When we have only one firm, that is the case of monopoly. And when we have infinitely large number of firms, that means the case of perfect competition. So industry output will lie between 80 and 160 depending upon the number of firms. If we have only one firm, then industry output will tend to the monopoly output, that is 80. And if we have infinitely large number of firms, then n tends to infinity, that is the industry output will be equal to 160. So the correct option, I guess, should be 80 and 160. Okay, I hope I make myself clear in this video. Let me give a small disclaimer here. I am not any expert on the economics. I'm just doing this stuff for you people. Okay, I don't have any hidden agenda or intention. These videos I put forward for you people so that you will not face any problem in the mathematical economics. Okay. So I hope you like, comment and share this channel with your friends. That's the only motivation for me to keep going on. Okay. Thank you.